You and me, let's filigree.
Welcome to another one of our videos related to the creation of traditional Turkish filigree. If you're not familiar, filigree is an ancient form of metalwork using a variety of types of wires, usually silver or gold, soldered together into different wearable and sculptural forms. This video will cover just the basic fabrication using both frame wires and filler wires. This is the sample that we'll be focused on in making this video, a basic 6-petaled flower ring. And you can see that each petal of the flower has the open twisted filigree wire without a backing, which is the typical feature for Turkish filigree. To start making your frame, be sure that the frame wire is annealed, and then you want to make 3 loops that will unfold into the 6 petals. A metal ruler is approximately the right size mandrel for this, but you can certainly vary the size based on what you're interested in doing. But just wrap and snip it. Now, obviously, you can be bending your frame wires into whatever shape you're planning on filling, but for this 6-petal ring sample, the next step that you're going to take is the making of the comb, or tarak in Turkish, and this just requires the consistent and flat bending of the frame wire. So you unwrap from the ruler or whatever mandrel you're working from, and then pinch in each of the bends consistently so that they are of uniform size. And when you're finished with this process, it should sort of look like a nice straight comb. So with any wire work, consistency and deliberateness is crucial. So you don't want to have to muck around with it too much. You want nice, smooth, consistent curves. So knowing what you're doing ahead of time, having uniform bends in the wire, and just approaching it clearly and concisely is really important, because you want those curves to be uniform as well as nice and smooth and consistent. So going in and messing around with it too much can create curves that are sort of stepped or have facets in it and things like that. So what you see here is just working on a nice, clean, flat surface, keeping the frame wire all in one plane, and then just making sure that those both pinched areas and the curves are consistent. And then again, you can use whatever mandrel is appropriate for your design. It can be different size dowel rods. In this case, we're using stepped round nose forming or bending pliers. And we found those to be really useful in that they have set consistent curves. And so you can grab your frame wire, hold it, and then bend it around. But that can also be done just with a dowel and your fingers. The other important thing to keep in mind while you're doing this is that the frame wire is all staying flat and in one plane. Here's the bending of the last end of it, so you're going to also be considering where that is going to meet in the overall pattern. At this stage, we are just soldering the ends of the frame together with a small chip of medium solder, and we find using a nice clean honeycomb block with pins works wonderfully. Now, with the end of the frame soldered together, it's important to get the final shape, in this case a 6-petal flower, consistent and shaped exactly how you want it to be, because we will be soldering more components to it in order to hold that shape, in order to fill it with the shaped filigree wires. So you want to take your time here, keeping the frame in a single flat plane, making sure all of the curves are uniform and consistent, that the creased areas are all coming together towards the center, and this is really the space and time for final adjustments. And all of this attention to detail with these linear elements is really important to being sure that the final piece has just a consistent beauty to it. And so be patient with this step and just take your time, step away from the piece if you need to, but making sure that you have nice, beautiful, smooth curves and a consistent design. At this stage, it's best to solder a small component to hold the shape of the frame. In this case, it is a thin 26 gauge sterling silver disc, about 1/4 inch in diameter, that has been flooded with medium solder and then flipped over and refluxed onto the back of the frame. This is where it will be soldered to the ring band. And while soldering, you want to be very, very careful to apply heat appropriately to get the solder to flow on the center component without melting or damaging any of the thinner frame wires. A small but important tip is to just spray a little bit of water after soldering to make sure that the frame wires don't stick to your soldering block and deform. So for this sample, we're only going to be using one shape for the fillings of the filigree, but this is a great opportunity to cover the 4 main shapes that are used in Turkish filigree. So the one that we'll be using for this sample is the teardrop or damla shape, but there's also the eye or mekik shape, or the letter form or vav, or the spiral, also called sim. And we'll just take a moment to go through how to quickly construct each one of these shapes. So the first shape that we'll start with is the teardrop or damla shape. And you begin this shape by curling the filling wire into a small circle and then making longer and longer concentric loops, with each one of them touching at one end of the overall shape. This is very important both for the soldering and the overall structural strength of the filigree. And then at the other end, you're going to create small gaps, and this creates visual interest and is one of the kind of signature features of filigree, the balance between positive and negative space of all of these linear wires all assembled together. The end of the final loop should be just past the area of all the loops touching, where this is an area that is least visually noticeable and easiest to blend in to the overall pattern when these are placed into the frames. The second shape that we'll be demonstrating is the eye or mekik shape, and this is very similar to the teardrop or damla shape, except that you're going to have spaces at both ends. So again, you'll start with a small circle and then be carefully bending the loops on either side of that circle so that then they have an even gap that is slowly increasing throughout the overall form. So again, it sort of looks like an eye. You have the circle in the center and then slight small spaces on either end, ending up with an overall kind of eye-shaped or oval filling that you're going to use in your filigree designs. The third shape is the letter form or vav, and it starts usually with 2 small concentric circles and then a tail spiraling off of it. And this form can either be combined with numerous other forms, or is a great form for filling small little spaces. So this is a very versatile filling shape. Now this fourth shape is a little bit different. The spiral or sim shape, meaning glitter, in that instead of the flattened twisted filler wire, you're going to use frame wire that has been put through a corrugator. So you do need an additional little piece of equipment, the corrugator seen here. And it's very important to have the right amount of pressure, just like a rolling mill, so that your corrugations are consistent and even, where you have a regular zigzag shape all through the wire, and there's no flats, so that you have just a nice consistent zigzag pattern in the wire that's going to be used as the filler. And this is just a reminder that you will obviously need to anneal your corrugated wire before you're going to try shaping it, because it'll be too springy and won't keep its form that you want to manipulate it into. So just like when you're after twisting and after flattening your other types of filler wires, that you would fully anneal it, you have it in a nice even spiral to prevent any of it from melting while annealing. Now for this shape, you're just going to start with a sandwich of the corrugated wire with the frame wire, evenly starting the circle in the center, and then just continuing a nice smooth concentric spiral around that center circle. You can have the opportunity to tighten up this circle later, but certainly you want to be careful, keep them flat and in the same plane so that they are just tightly winding around each other. In this particular shape, once you're done with that sandwich of the frame wire and the corrugated frame wire, it's almost always contained within a soldered circle of frame wire. So you'll need to wind that up and get it to tightly fit inside of that circular frame wire, sort of like figuring out the sizes of a stone to its bezel. So once you've made your fillings to fit inside of your soldered frame, you'll be ready to actually solder those fillings into the frame. Now while fitting, you can adjust those different shapes, and you can even carefully anneal those shapes to get them to fit within the frames that you fabricated. But you want to adjust all of the wires so that you have a great sort of overall composition, even spaces between the open areas, nice tightly fitting wires so that they're all laying up against each other, if that is the intention. And when you pick up your frame with the fillings inside of it, they should be sprung against the frame so that none of them are fall out. So you pick them up, tap your frame with the fillings, and none of them should fall out, and then you are ready to solder. So when you're setting up to solder, be sure that you have a nice, flat, clean soldering block, ideally just dedicated to filigree soldering. And you want to just lightly sprinkle your pre-made solder mix just for filigree onto your pieces. And you want to heat slowly and evenly to make sure that you're not going to overheat any areas where more of the wires are exposed and might heat up faster. So just a slow, even heating, watching for when the sprinkled solder will flow over your form and that it's completely flowed in every area. And just another reminder that after soldering and letting your piece air cool for a moment, you want to quench that with just a little spray bottle of water to be sure it doesn't stick to your soldering block. Then you can pick up your piece and pickle it before continuing on. And since the making of solder for filigree is such an labor-intensive process, I'd encourage you to have a clean brush, in this case just a clean unused toothbrush dedicated to this job, of carefully brushing off any of the sprinkled solder that wasn't used in the soldering operation, so that then you can use it in future operations. Now, this next step isn't specific to filigree, but in this case, for these 6 petal ring sample that we're doing here. We have a prefabricated sterling silver ring band, and what I would suggest is just filing a slight flat where the ring band is going to solder to that disc on the back of your filigree design, and that will just help them meet just a little bit better and have a more solid soldering seam at that point of contact. Now, with every soldering operation, all of the different factors are going to be slightly different based on the thickness of gauges of wire or sizes of designs. In this case, again, you just want to be bringing the ring band up to temperature at the same time as the filigree design. We're just using easy solder that has been flooded on that filed point of the ring band to solder it to the disc on the underside of the filled filigree 6 petals. And here you just see them soldering together as they reach temperature at the same time. So for the final touch on this piece, you can take one of those discs that is used on the underside and slightly dome it. And this has been flooded with easy solder on the inside of the dome and placed into a dish of small pumice rocks to hold the ring upright. And again, just another basic soldering operation where you're heating everything up, bringing it up to temperature at the same time. So then the easy solder from the domed central element will solder to the filigree design. So after pickling, there are several different ways of finishing your filigree designs. Depending on the overall design, it certainly works well with basic stainless steel shot in a tumbler, and that can both burnish the piece as long as you don't leave it too long for that might cause damage from excessive tumbling, but that can also harden the pieces and make them more durable, as well as giving them a nice tumbled sheen. You can also use a clean, soft brass brush with soap underwater, and that can also give a nice highlight to your pieces. You could go around edges with a polished burnisher to highlight any of the edges as well. So there's a variety of different approaches that you can take to finishing your piece that will make it durable and a wonderful, functional, and wearable piece. So I hope this video has been informative and useful to you, and we would love to see the kind of filigree designs that you end up making. Good luck! If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear from me when I post future videos. Thanks for stopping by.